Welcome everybody to the Mind, Body, and Soul television show coming to you live from our Conscious Evolution Media TV studios here in Denver, Colorado. I'm your host, Coach Steve Toth, and also the founder of Conscious Evolution Media. More than 10 years in the making, as well as more than 15,000 shows, and no longer counting. I am I am just absolutely pleased to introduce our next guest on this special Friday evening. But before I do, just want to remind everybody that we are streaming live on YouTube Live, as well as in Hangouts and on ConsciousEvolutionMedia.com. So our guest this evening is Marianne Baker. She's an author and also a love therapist, which of course I love because relationships is one of our channels. We call it Relationship Evolution. And she's joining us from Canada, our friendly neighbors up north. Welcome to the show, Marianne.
Thank you so much, Vancouver, Canada.
Absolutely. So I mentioned a couple of titles there: an author and also a love therapist. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure there are many other things people have called you in your lifetime. So if I ask you to, for the moment, forget them all, like they didn't exist. If I take all those titles away, what's left? Who is really Marianne Baker?
Wow, now there's a question I've never been asked before. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is to tell you about what I value. And what I really value above anything is my connection to spirit, and knowing what it is, the value that I get from connection to spirit. Ultimately, that's the goal of my whole practice. Like my book, my book caters to women who struggle with love in relationships, and yet the bigger picture is always about let's get connected to spirit.
Okay, gotcha. Mm-hmm. That's a fantastic answer, and of course our theme this evening, since she is a love therapist and an author, our theme this evening is how you communicate can impact your relationship, and it does, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So tell us a little bit about your story, just a summary of your story, so everybody can get related to you on the network.
Yeah, absolutely.
How did you get this far?
Well, I was 48 years and single, and really quite pissy about it. I was not wanting to be single, but didn't know how to have a relationship beyond 2 years. I always found myself packing up my latest remnants of dignity to leave a relationship after a couple of years, and I just didn't know what it was that would have me stay. And so I was actually in a counseling program. It's a 3-year counseling program, and in it, I was actually counseled at the same time as I actually learned to counsel. And so that just opened up a whole new ball of wax about how I was actually able to be in a relationship in a completely different way. And so now my passion is to help other women do the same. I'm now married. I've been married for just 4.5 years now, almost 5 years.
Oh,
and
well,
so,
congratulations.
And I'm happily married. Like I'm loving the journey and loving the process of marriage, and how I have to continue to expand who I am and be the process. So that's what I want to help other women with.
Oh, great! Congratulations. And have you been married before, or this is the first time?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if you can call it married. I was married when I was 19 for a total of 50 weeks, so I'm not sure if I counted. It was kind of like a blip on the radar.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. So, what are some of the ups and downs that you went through in your life so far? That you don't have to share it all, but maybe just some highlights, just some pinnacle moments where you experienced some aha moments and experienced some challenges that you would be willing to share.
Wow, well that's pretty much every day of my
life. Mine too.
Yeah, I'm always looking for how I can learn and grow and expand who I am, and just continue to get closer to spirit in that way, to pull off all the layers so that I can discover who I really am underneath it. Some big highlights was actually in my counseling course, taking my counseling course. It was a 3-year it's a registered counseling course, but it's spiritually based, and it's based on A Course in Miracles. And so for that 3 years, all I did was go deeper and deeper and deeper into the premise of forgiveness. And it was the best thing I've ever done in my life. And it's what helps me be in a different relationship to everyone. Like, it's not just helped me be married now, but I have a whole different relationship to my mom and my family and, you know, all the people that I struggled with before in my life. And the tough bits. Well, being married for the first year was a bit of a struggle. Like, it was a bit different than I thought, but once I got some help and got my own butt.
Oh, so you had expectations.
Oh, right, yeah. Yeah, I know, definitely.
Is that one of the things that can really mess things up when we have expectations?
Oh, it absolutely I would say more even specifically attachments to expectations.
Like how it should be.
Right. Yeah. And if it's not going that way, then it's your problem because you're not meeting my expectations. And that's one of the things that I talk about in my book. Is I talk about what I call the Cinderella fantasy, or what my friend calls the Cinderella syndrome. Because as little girls, we're all trained that way. You know, we grow up with all these Disney quotes of, you know, and then they lived happily ever after. It's like, well, no, actually, marriage is just another situation with its own set of problems. You know, it's you know, Prince Charming isn't going to come in this way.
So getting back into our theme, which is really about communication, I feel that it's one of the biggest things that that we can all master, because everything that happens all day long is basically all about communication.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we could, like, maybe peel the onion on communication and get deeper. So in your experience, what are some of maybe the top 3 ways people communicate that absolutely does not work?
Does not work. Well, as you were saying earlier, it starts, like, I think it's more about your perspective than the actual words sometimes, because if you have a different perspective, your words will follow what it is that you're feeling and thinking. And so if you go in, like you said, with expectation, what's going to come out of your mouth is, this is what I expect, and you are not living up to what I expect, and that, no matter what the way you talk about it, that's what's going to come out of your mouth.
And it's all your fault.
Yeah, it's all your fault. So that, and also going in with assumptions, like, this is the way that it is, as opposed to, actually, how is it for you? Like, maybe I'm wrong. You know, maybe I could be wrong. Maybe the way that I see it isn't the way. Let me ask you instead and see what your perspective is. Then maybe we can.
Yeah, we can come to some kind of an agreement. Yeah. Even when we disagree, we can come to an agreement. So, yeah. Interestingly, do you feel that one of the things that people do a lot of, which is a lot of blaming, like people in general are unwilling to be responsible and accountable for themselves?
Well, and what I learned through my own counseling program wasn't, because I was also that way as well, and it wasn't so much that I was unwilling, I just didn't know any better. Like, I was caught up in all my, egoic machinations, and I didn't know how to be responsible. I didn't know how to question what my, crazy mind was telling me sometimes. I didn't know that was even a possibility. So I think people have to be shown that there is something new and there is something else, and then they can go, oh, what is that exactly? And then the more that you learn to question that and understand when you have those attachments, then your whole world opens up with something new.
So I know this one thing that, well, there's several things I want to touch on, but this one is a dear friend of mine. in terms of talking about this, and which is we all have buttons that people can press.
Yeah.
And when people press our buttons, we react. Mm-hmm. And then the people that press the button gets our reaction, and they also mm-hmm. react, because usually we'll react back in a way that it will push their buttons. And matter of fact, in just my own history of relationships, I I noticed I had a lot of unhealthy relationships, meaning in the past, not in the last 10 years, but before that. Um, Interestingly, uh, like I have it so that people, including myself, back then, I was looking for something to fulfill me. Like I was
Mhm.
always running around missing something, and I was
Mhm.
looking for the person that had that what I was missing. And then
Mhm.
once I found it, I said, "Wow, wow, this is it."
How'd that go?
It didn't go well at all.
Right. Yeah.
And I, and I was in relationships where we made unspoken agreements, like I had a motivation why I wanted to be in the relationship, and so did the other person, but it was unspoken. Like we wouldn't be willing to be straight about it. We made these assumptions, and then the assumptions were actually correct. And we figured, well, as long as she was getting what she wanted from me, and I was getting what she was getting, what I was getting from her, everything would be fine. But at some point, that arrangement somehow stopped, and everything went crazy.
Mhm.
So how often do you think? So I'm gonna just get back for a minute to this button pushing,
Yes,
because I find it fascinating
I love
because
this topic.
this button pushing is really getting to know someone, as far as I have learned, getting to know them at a core level, meaning that we all have these buttons, and most of us
Mhm.
have been working on them. Well, a lot of us have been working on them for a lifetime, and we think that we have healed it. But then something can happen, and all of a sudden we discover that we didn't fully heal it. Matter of fact, it's probably never going to be fully healed.
Mhm.
Uh, I just had this experience after 10 years. I lived kind of an interesting life for the last 10 years. I kind of created this bubble around me called Conscious Evolution Media, and I was living this life of everything is cool in consciousness, and everything is cool being with cool people that are conscious, and I'm just gonna kind of ignore the real world because that doesn't serve me. This does.
Yeah.
This serves me, and I'm very happy and content. But after
Uh-huh.
10 years, it got to the point where, hey, this is like, I can do this like with both of my hands behind my back and my eyes closed. Now what? So I was
Good
basically
question.
called to go out to corporate America and see what I can do with all this stuff that I created in the last 10 years. And boy, it is very, very challenging. So I had a partner of mine recently stand up, and I was standing as well. And there was some verbal interaction between us that kind of got to this point. And he pointed the finger at me and he said, I do not have time to tell you the 1,024 things I don't want you to be involved in. I just want you to do one thing. And he pointed the finger at me. Now, that is connected to a button of mine, which is something that I lived through when I was growing up as a kid with my mother. My mother
Mhm.
used to point the finger at me
Ah, yeah, there
all,
you go.
all the time, and I felt that I worked most of my life to heal that, and I healed most of it, but obviously not all of it,
Mhm.
because when I was experiencing this, I was basically going like, oh my God, I wanted to rebel, but at least this time I knew that if I continued the conversation, it would not be a healthy thing to do, and I may say or do something that I won't be able to take back. So what I said is basically, hang on for a minute. I gotta get outside and get some fresh air and
Good for
clear
you.
clear my head, because there's something going on here with me, and this is not about you, but I just need to be with it for a little bit and figure it out. So I
Right.
left for a long lunch, and it was quite obvious to me. It came to me at lunch that wow, this is really this is really that old button of mine where I am being controlled, and when I'm experiencing being controlled, I will rebel absolutely, and I will basically say, you know, if you want to control me, that's not going to happen. I'm going to show you how you're not going to control me. So so I was reminded of all that, and I basically had a conversation with this partner of mine that evening, and he apologized to me, and I apologized to him, and I told him that, and I'm giving this example because it's real life example, and I feel that the viewers can get something out of it, and perhaps maybe even be touched, moved, and inspired by it. But what was interesting is he said to me, and I said, this is not your fault. This is not about you. You just said something, and you said it in a certain way that it activated me. And this is about me, and I needed to process it. And so, you know, forgive me, and you're learning about me. And so if you ever, so you need to know this about me, that the last thing you want to do with me is control me, because I will not be controlled. That is not a good way. That is not a way to be on my good side, right?
Good for you. Good for you.
And so we have this understanding, so that now it's his choice, and I told him I can't control you either, but and I know, and I certainly know one of his buttons. But now we have an opportunity of being conscious about this, and not pressing each other's buttons on purpose. Do you get this?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I can even talk about the layers of what actually happens underneath when we have,
go ahead.
Have that response.
I shared my story.
Yeah, no, I actually really congratulate you, because the whole thing with when we have those triggers isn't necessarily that we're going to heal them all the way necessarily. Like, they may come up in our life depending on where we're at and how much we're going and how much anxiety we're creating in our life. But what you did was actually created a new relationship to that trigger, and that's the whole idea. Because from then you're not acting from the trigger. You're actually just being able to share, hey, this is who I am, and this is what happens for me when I see, you pointing a finger at me like that. So, and that actually brings people closer. So
yeah, absolutely. And that happened because I just said, I'm going to give you just a brief example from my life, because the reason I left Communist Hungary, the icing on the cake is that my mother got me in the kitchen and came at me with the knife and got me in the corner, and she was gonna basically let me have it with the knife. And that's when I decided. And to me, that knife and the way she came at me is the finger. Do you get it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and see, that's the beautiful thing, that you were able to connect that feeling through that moment when you were a child, because you've been feeling that feeling ever since that moment.
Yeah, right. So every time somebody was trying to control me, I was feeling that.
That same feeling, as if you were, suddenly 7 years old again, or however old you were in that moment. Yeah,
I was a little bit older. But what was cool is his response to that was, he says, I wish that you were close right now, because I would hug you.
Aww.
And that was really cool, because I got it. I got it that he understood what was going on, and our relationship just elevated to a whole new level.
Yeah, that's great.
And I know his button, and I don't purposely push it.
Right.
Because I know I'm being respectful, that I understand that this is something that really activates him, and there's nothing good in it for me to push it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Good for you. That's beautiful. I mean, it's interesting, because with those triggers and with those buttons, there's actually two different opportunities, and one of them is to do exactly what you just described, and to share it with another, so that you can actually bring them closer. And there's actually another opportunity with it, which is where I help people a lot, is you can actually take that, it's an opportunity to get closer to the source of who you are. So it actually is layers. Like, that first layer is that attack layer. Like, here's my blame, because I'm thinking that I'm being threatened, because I'm suddenly, however old I was in my mom's kitchen. So you're going to let go with that blame. But underneath that is actually a layer of our guilt and our shame. And if you can actually fully express that attack and blame layer, you'll naturally drop into guilt and shame. And actually, many people there start to cry when you actually get through that layer. And then underneath all of that
is love.
Well, yeah, there's another layer between is what you're believing about yourself and about the other person. And then underneath that layer is your connection to source. Yeah. So there is layers of our psyche that we can work through, and that has a beautiful opportunity to get connected to what is really true.
Right. And this is like really like a dance. And couples, and I would say, and I'm sure you say too, is that couples need to really learn how to do this dance, because if they don't, and again I'm speaking from personal experience because that's all the reference I have, is when I didn't learn how this dynamic worked, my relationship started to spiral downward. Because that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually have my best friend and I, my best female friend, she and I actually see a counselor together, because we do that. We trigger each other, like we push each other's buttons, and what happens is she tends to get, I'll use the word pokey, like she takes little jabs at me verbally, and I have no, and what I learned about myself in all of this is I had no boundaries. I didn't know how to say, hey, that's not okay with me, and so we actually really were scuffling for a very long time, and ended up going to a counselor together to get some help, and now our counselor calls us our other primary relationship.
That's funny. So there's another piece here. There's another piece here that I wanted to mention, which is if we can create this, like this partner of mine, I now have it that he has given me a gift.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, especially if you can. The gift is learning to use those triggers to actually get back to the source of who you are, and to understand that, because once you get through all those layers of emotion, you have a total experience of being connected to yourself and to another person, and you're no longer believing all those things that you believe about yourself or about them. There's no longer an attack. Somebody could be standing there, shaking the finger at you, and you can instead go, hey, I wonder why they're shaking the finger at me, instead of reacting. So yeah, there's beautiful opportunities in it. And
actually, what I'm looking for is somebody's shaking their finger at me, and I go, so what?
Yeah.
They're shaking their finger at me. So what? No big deal.
Right. Yeah. I wonder what's going on over there.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll get there.
And see, that's when you can become great. Like what you described with your friend is this beautiful movement together. And so where is not best to be grateful?
And it's all communication. Yeah. You get it, Marianne? It's I had to be willing to share my experience with him, and and he was listening, enough that he heard me and got me. And that's another piece I wanted to, this kind of goes into this other piece, which is about listening, and what listening is. And I do this a lot on the show, and a lot of times because I do it in the background, people may not know what's going on. But to me, listening, and I want to get your feedback, but to me, listening is an art form. And I'm happy to share, unless you want to go first. Up to you. But what?
Love to hear what you think.
Yeah. So for me, for me, listening is. I mean, there's definitely a reason why we have 2 ears and only one mouth. And because we should be listening at least twice as much as we speak. And what's interesting is I'm training some salespeople right now in corporate America, and I have some salespeople that are constantly talking, and I'm going, dude, if you are constantly talking, you are never going to find out who this customer is and what their needs are, because you never give them an opportunity to actually share that with you. It's kind of interesting, and I'm still working with this one individual that it's all about asking questions and waiting for the response, because it's from the response we're going to learn. But the way I train myself to listen is to get the conversation, the chatter in my head to go down to nothing. Like right now, Marianne, as I'm speaking with you and as I've been dialoguing with you, there is no chatter in my head.
No.
Some people probably go, "That's crazy." I don't believe it, but there's truly no chatter. There's no conversation in my head going, "Okay, so I can't wait for the show to be over because I have to do this afterwards. I haven't eaten yet, so I need to eat." And so when we do that, when we do this chatter, what ends up happening, because I used to do it, that I'm not present. And when I'm not fully present, I'm only going to get less than 10% of what you're saying.
Yeah. What was that?
So
No, I'm kidding.
So what did I just say, Marianne? Because this is the task that you're gonna be in relationship. You're gonna be able to repeat what the person said, the other person.
Yeah,
if you can't repeat it, you weren't listening.
Well, your context was all about listening, and you were saying that you're training some salespeople right now, and that you're finding that all they do is talk rather than actually listen to what their customers are looking for. And
Right.
You're finding that as you have learned to let the chatter in your brain fall away, that you're able actually to be fully present with another.
Correct. And I like right now I'm leaning over, so I'm over there with you.
Yeah, I feel you.
I'm attempting to put myself into your shoes, like who is really Marianne Baker. And as I'm over there, and as you're speaking, I'm listening in between, in the silence between what you say, in the silence for what you're not saying.
Very nice.
And
yeah, when you lean in,
magic happens.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I can feel your presence more when you lean in, absolutely. But yeah, I agree with you 100%. I've heard that somebody has had an hour conversation with someone where the other person is just asking them questions. They actually don't learn anything about the other person, but the person that's being asked the question said, that was the best conversation I've ever had. And it's just because somebody else is asking them all about them, and they got to actually fully share with somebody really involved and somebody really listening. And I agree with you about the salespeople, because when somebody is just yammering at me, I feel sold. I don't feel related to. I don't feel like this person cares. So, as a sales
do you feel that they have your best interest at heart?
Not at all, not at all. And that's actually one of the things that I teach women in my book, because these women that struggle usually find men that don't. And so that's part of it. That's part of one of the things that I want to lead women's heads to is, do I feel like this person really has my best interest? It's a really important question.
So Marianne, what are you finding in terms of what are the challenges that women have today in the dating world, especially people over 40? I'm curious to hear this, because I'm getting more and more interested getting back into that game, because I really took myself out of that whole thing because I was just too busy trying to figure out who I was. And creating this network and being in an intimate relationship wasn't something that was high on my list. It's still not the top, but it's moving up.
Oh, wait till some little sweetie comes along and tickles your heart.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what it's like to be in love when you become conscious, because I haven't experienced it yet. My previous life, 10 years ago, those experiences and those love relationships were all when I was not conscious. So.
And you have a much better toolbox now that you can actually share, like you did with your friends, about your changes. That's a beautiful thing.
It would be definitely totally different.
Yeah.
So what are the challenges of these single women these days? This will help me get some insights.
Yeah, absolutely. There is one huge obstacle that women come up against. And this is something that will actually help you as a man, too, to know how to respond to a woman. But women don't ask. They don't ask, they don't know, a lot of women don't even know what their needs are in a relationship, never mind how to ask for them. And that was the biggest thing for me that actually helped me to get married, was that, like, my husband, he comes from, you know, a long line of hoarders. And so the first time I walked into his apartment, it was like this man cave filled with Rubbermaid tubs full of stuff, and like all his apartment was filled with all this sports stuff and just like filled with stuff. And had I been my old self and not been able to ask for what I want and not been able to know even what I wanted, I would have just thrown my hands in the air and run away screaming. And this time I actually got to go in and say to him, you know what, I really, and here's where the communication comes in. I really love you. I really want this relationship to work, but I can't live like this. You know, I need something that might, for my
Or you choose not to.
Yeah, for my needs to be met in this relationship, I want to have a different experience, and I don't, yeah, like you said, I can't live like this. And he turned and said to me, well, you know what, thank God that you told me, because I would rather live with you than my collection of sportsmen. So for your opportunity as a man is to ask a woman, what is it that you want? What is it that you see in a relationship? What is it that you want in a relationship? And get her to see if she can actually express that with real from their heart, rather than from, like you say, their triggers, because that's where women feel helpless and they get triggered, because they don't know how to ask and they don't know what it is they want. So you can help a lot of women just by asking that question.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm getting back to where I was 10 years ago when I was starting my shows. I used to ask this question, what do you want? And instead of asking the question, you know, I started the show with you taking away all your titles. So 10 years ago, the way my shows were starting is, so what do you want? How are you going to get what you want? What are the and why do you want what you want? And what are the challenges you think that you're gonna? What are the things that are going to stop you from what you really want? And how are you going to measure your success? And I stopped doing this for a long time, but now back in corporate America, I'm starting these questions up again because I feel that they're becoming very, very appropriate. Like, it's very cool to sit down with, with somebody when, especially I interview people. That's one of my responsibilities is to interview people to bring them into the organization, and I ask them that question: what do you want?
Brilliant.
Like, why are you here?
Great.
What do you want?
Great.
If they just tell me they want a job, I'm not interested. You know.
Yeah.
It better be something more passionate than just you want a job. There's nothing wrong with having a job, but there's got to be more than that. You know what I mean?
You know what? That would be a perfect set. Sorry, were you done? That would be a perfect set of questions to ask each other on, say, your third date. Like, say if you are feeling, you've got a few dates going on, and you're feeling, okay, third date, I'm liking this girl enough to be here. That would be a perfect set of questions to be able to ask each other. Like, what a juicy conversation that would start. Like, if I had a man ask me those questions on a third date, I'd be in. I'd be in. and given that that's who you are, if you find a woman that goes, oh my God, this is really weird, she's not your girl.
Yeah. I sometimes feel that I would scare them all away.
Oh no, I'd be totally up for that.
Well, maybe that's the filter that I should be using is that if they run away, that's fine.
Right.
If they stay, that may be some proof in the pudding that they're up to what I'm up to. Because I'm really looking for somebody similar to, what my values are. They don't have to be exactly the same, but they should be similar. And then I have some certain values that I live by, and and if we're not compatible, then um, I have some deal breakers that I didn't used to have,
Yeah.
and you know, they're not negotiable.
Yeah. Good for you. Good
Do
for
you think
you.
people talk about stuff like that on
Do people
dates?
talk about stuff like that on as a
Yeah.
date?
Well, not on the
Um,
first date, but you know, maybe 6 months. Yeah. And what is this other thing that people do? And it's something that I'm not interested in doing anymore, but I used to do it, where we are both pretending. We're pretending. I'm pretending that I'm the greatest guy on planet Earth, and
yeah.
I'll put my best foot forward,
Yeah.
and then I'll keep going for several months, and then one day I forget, and I'm not playing that role anymore, and the real me comes out, and then the other person
Okay.
goes, "Who the hell is that?"
That's the day that you fart in
Yeah,
public.
yeah, whatever. But I just, you know, I show my real self, and people go,
Yeah.
"What was that?" So how do we because since we're on a conscious network, and I probably would prefer to talk about no, I want to talk about conscious dating. Like
Mhm.
how do you set up, you know, this ritual? And I even hate the word dating. It's just a stupid word to me. But that's just me. It's for me. It's like a ritual. It's a getting to know. It's a getting to know each other, but it's not. It's for me. It's more of a discovery than it is playing this stupid role that people play. It's these stupid games um, that, you know. How do I? What's the word I'm looking for? Like I'm having this problem on this network where I don't find words anymore to describe things, and that's sad. But the English language is fairly limited. But so what I'm talking about is how do I set up this dance again? It's a dance. It's a dance with
Mhm.
another person
Mhm.
where it's real. It's
Yeah.
not it's not pretending to be somebody who you are not.
Yeah. Well, it's a really good question, and I think it comes with the type of journey you've been on. Like you've taken this 10 years to become self-aware. And I don't know if you can do what you've just said without actually having taken some steps to become self-aware. And
Hmm.
because as you become self-aware, then you can actually share, hey, this is really who I am authentically. But if you haven't done that journey, you don't even know who yourself is. So how can you share that with another person?
Yeah, we have no choice then to pretend because we don't know who we are.
We don't know who we are. That's right. Exactly.
It's
And
like
and
Broadway. It's
yeah.
like Broadway, and everybody does such a good job, you know. Like, I remember I used to go out in public in all these parties, and everybody is just having the greatest time
Yeah.
pretending, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's like one of those dressed up parties that we do at Halloween.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know how you got me to throw away my cuddles at the beginning of this show? One of the things that I think is attached to this math-keeping that we do, is we have, you know how people have the list. I have a list of how a guy or a girl is supposed to be or supposed to look. And they're gonna, guy is gonna wear Gucci shoes, and they're gonna do this, and they're gonna look like that, and they're gonna have all these things. That is part and parcel of this math-keeping that we do, because it's a very superficial
Mm.
way of relating to another person. So the more that we can actually just burn that list and throw it away and then see who we are, that's a really good way to start that journey. And then, because then you can actually share. Because one of the things I do is I coach women on the internet to to write a profile that actually shares more about who they are, because they're looking, like most women do it, like, hi, I'm Bambi and I like to roller skate, and because they're looking to attract 1,000 men. And what
Mm.
I'm saying is, you don't need 1,000 men, you only need one, and you only need the one that's going to match you. So when I was internet dating, the more refined my profile became and the more authentic, self-aware and authentic I became, the fewer men approached me, but that was okay, because I didn't want a bunch of men. I just wanted the one guy. And I even had a guy one time. I said, because I shared some stuff with him, and I said, "Oh, did that scare you?" And he goes, "Well, I did sit back in my chair a bit." So I knew he wasn't my guy. But and so, like you say, you can once you all the getting authentic sooner does is save you some time. Really, you can go in and spend 6 months in your mask, but the more authentic you can be, the more self-aware you can be more quickly. It just saves you this time.
Yeah, I don't want to do any of it, and I don't really care. I don't have this picture of what she looks like and what kind of clothing she wears and how she acts. I don't really care about any of that. What I care about is she able to connect with me? Is there a connection there, and how deep does that connection go, or how deep is she willing to go? That's all I really care about.
Yeah, like my new list is, how do I feel when I'm with this person? When we talk, do I feel like getting closer, or do I feel like moving away? And like the question you asked earlier, do I feel like this person really has my best interest at heart? So that's the new list, in my mind, is more questions like that are more authentic, and not about you, but about me and my space and how I feel like moving and connecting with you.
So how do you think we can also well you only actually just shared one challenge that you feel a lot of women has, which is asking questions, and which to me is expressing themselves. What are some of the others that they have? Do you feel like people live a lot in their past? Do women relive their previous relationships? Do they bring the baggage with them?
Well, I don't know if that's specific to women. I think all people do, and all people bring. And the thing is that we think that the baggage comes from our last relationship, and I challenge that theory. I think that it's actually from the moment that our mother is in the kitchen holding the knife. Like those are the types of feelings, and those are the things that we're going to continue to recreate through relationship, and that's another challenge that both men and women have. And so, as you say, as you become more self-aware and more aware of those things that we pull along with us, you become more aware that it's not the person standing in front of us to blame, that it's actually our emotional pattern that we're continuing to call from relationship to relationship to relationship. So there is a concept that I'll talk about, and I call it matching luggage. And it's one of the things, unconscious things that we don't realize that we carry through from relationships. So this is another challenge, is that in our family, we learn to get a certain emotional distance from people. So say, for example, and we carry that through. So to everyone we date, to every relationship we have, as long as they maintain a certain amount of emotional distance, then all is well. It's when somebody steps in that things start to get a little anxious and people start, doing the patterns that they normally do, and this really gets in the way in the relationship. Like say you're dating somebody and you're on your fifth date and you go, hey, I kind of like this person. I'm going to share a little bit more about myself authentically here. So you take a step in. She might go, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, what is he doing? I don't know how to connect here, on an unconscious level. And so it takes learning how to do that down. And again, it all goes back to self-awareness. So that matching luggage is the emotional distance that we're used to, that we carry through with us. Again, another challenge.
Yeah, very, very interesting. All right, is there any more that you can come up with?
You got 10 hours?
Well, not necessarily women. You're right. The only reason I brought up, well, there's two reasons I brought up women. One is because I'm interested in that in that side of humanity right now. I went through this process myself. Because my mom was pissed at men, and she took it out on me.
Yeah.
I took the baton, and I was pissed at women for a long time.
Yeah.
And I went through this whole transformation where, I made I made them my friends, and I've been working on that for many years. Not me, especially strong women. I used to make them my enemy, and in the last decade, I made them my friends.
Mm.
And I think now I'm getting to the point, that maybe I am a slow learner, but I'm just getting to the point where, you know, most of my anger, I would say, have dissipated. I'm not angry at women anymore.
Mm.
Um, and maybe this is my journey, that this is what I had to do, so that I can be, in a beautiful, loving, and conscious relationship at some
Yeah.
point here.
Yeah, 'cause all of those. I mean, one of the things that we don't realize as well is those moments as we grow, and they create, for our triggers. They also create our skills. Like you become who you become as a result of all that, in both good and bad. So um, that's another thing. As you learn to create a new relationship to the trigger, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You keep the skills that you learn, because you probably, as you grew up, it was just you and your mom, was it? And your father?
Pardon me?
So was it just you and your mom that grew up together? You didn't have a father with you?
No, no, no. My father was, he was a very quiet man.
Quiet man.
He let
Okay.
her do whatever.
Okay. So what I would guess, given the situation with your mom,
My
and
mom was wearing the pants.
yeah, and so what I would guess about you then is that you probably grew up really independently. Like you probably thought, in that world, there's nobody that I can count on. I'm really going to have to create my own world and
Oh
do it
yeah, I
on my
did.
own.
I jolted.
Yeah,
I was 19 and I left the country.
yeah. Which wasn't easy to do then. Like you would have had to have done a lot of underground things to get out of that time, didn't
Yeah, yeah, I did.
you?
I did many underground things for many years, like 3, 4
Yeah,
years before I was able
yeah,
to really make the escape successful. Yeah.
yeah. So you
But
growing up actually gave you the skills of resourcefulness and independence and learning to forge your own way. So I hate to look back on those times as just strictly bad, because you became who you are as a result of it. But going back to your original question, which was more about, what are the challenges we face, one of the other things I talk about in my book is called what I call a love-o-meter. And what a love-o-meter is say you've got a thermometer that goes to 100. That's you. I'm the thermometer. The degree of love that you are shown in your family will fill your love-o-meter up to a certain degree. And so say you struggle with, your family struggles with love, they don't know how to get emotionally close. Your love-o-meter is only going to fill to, say 25 out of 100. And so what you don't know about relationships is you're actually going to meet somebody whose love-o-meter is also only filled to 25. And so that's another challenge. And it's not based on behavior, it's based on emotional, more emotional patterns, more emotionality rather than behavior. So it can look tricky sometimes. But until you start doing the self-aware piece and learn to grow yourself and learn to accept yourself and love yourself as you are, that's what grows the level of your love-o-meter, and that's what's going to have you attracted to somebody who's a little more aware, a little more awake. And so that's another relationship challenge, is you need to actually do your own work to be able to attract a new kind of person.
gotcha. So I want to talk about your book, and the title of it escapes me. So I need an explanation. The lime green plastic covered couch is the title
Yeah,
of your book.
yeah.
What the heck is that?
Exactly. That's the question. The first question everybody asks me. Just so you can see, the subtitle is "Insight for Women Who Struggle to Find Lasting Love." So it's a book for women who struggle like I did. So the lime green. Remember, I was saying earlier that my husband was a hoarder. One of the things that he also found out while I was dating him was that there was a guy down the hallway from him that he heard he had bed bugs. So suddenly I come over one day and all of his furniture was covered in lime green plastic. And so that was why the name of the book became The Lime Green Plastic Covered Couch, because we'd sit on this crinkly, horrible, covered lime green couch for months. And I look back on it now as this beautiful opportunity because it became the tool for me to be able to ask for what I needed in a relationship to be happy. And so I now have really fond memories of this horrible old ugly couch. And we live in a beautiful place now, and the couch didn't come, but that was what inspired the title of the book.
Okay, gotcha. So and what inspired you, and also tell our viewers where can they get this book? What inspired you to write a book, and when somebody reads it, what are they gonna get? Like, what's the bottom line?
Yeah, you know what? I actually never really consciously set out to write a book. It was just like one day I put pen to paper and it just started coming. So I can't say I wanted to become an author. It just came, and so I listened and I just wrote. And so what women will get out of it is they will learn, they will get a bigger perspective so that they start to see that, it's things like their love meter that's only filled to 25 that attracts the guy that's only filled to 25, and that their matching luggage also matches the guy with the degree of emotional distance that they're at. So what it does is it takes the blame game out of the picture, so that a woman can learn to stop, to take the blame off the guy. It's like, okay, wait a minute, this is a relationship. If you put the relationship as the bubble of 100%, I'm responsible for this 50, and the man is responsible for this 50. How am I going to play my 50 if I want if I want this kind of response from this 50%? Who am I going to be? How can I become more self-aware so that my 50% is I get to see, to claim this 50, so that I get to match it on the other side. So they get to see how they can actually match and have power in a relationship. And like you say, communication is a big thing. Like, I could have gone into my husband's apartment and said, oh my God, this is awful. This is what a mess. Like, why are you, how can you live like this? And the old me probably would have done that. But instead, I said, I love you. I want this relationship, but I can't live like it. And so, knowing that I have my 50% of the relationship, I'm going to treat it differently. And I'm attracting who it is that I am. So they get to see more and more of that.
So, okay, so what I want to say to that is I'm going to respectfully disagree.
Okay.
I hope that's okay. So the reason I'm going to respectfully disagree is because I feel that we are responsible and accountable 100%. There is no 50-50. And I can prove it to you because and I go back to that previous conversation when we're in a relationship and we're in this dance, I have the power actually to set up that relationships the way I want it set up, and I can change it at any time.
Absolutely.
And if I change it at any time, the other party cannot respond the same way that they used to respond. So I'm going to give you an example. The example of we're pretending. Okay, so I'm pretending that I'm somebody who I'm not. And then I change the game. I'm going to become my real me. I just changed the game 100%. I'm a different person.
Yeah.
And my partner can no longer respond to me the same way she responded to me when I was pretending.
I love that.
Does that make sense?
It absolutely does, and I totally agree with you.
So we have 100% power in a relationship. We really do.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I'm just working in a different model because another issue that women run up against, and it's just a different model and a different way of talking about it. But I am with you that you do have total and complete power in your relationship.
Well, for me, I don't know about the other person, but I know that I can change the relationship just based on who I'm being and how I communicate. I mean, I can do it. As soon as I change, it's not the other person that I'm waiting for changing. I'm changing. I'm growing.
Yeah.
And then the other person gets to respond. and she can't respond the same way as I'm. I mean, this is the thing that usually goes haywire in a relationship, is that two people are not growing at the same speed, at the same, and also at the same quality. They growing at different speeds and different, what's the word I'm looking for? Different. They having different experiences, and they, instead of growing together, they kind of growing apart. Mm-hmm. Do you see that happening in relationships?
I do. And before we move on to that, I just want to go back and address the model that I'm using, just because it's another struggle that women have in relationship, and so this is more good information for you. The reason that I use the 50% model is because women have a tendency to do what I call overfunction. And so what that means is that instead of, they take their 100% of their responsibility, but then they start moving this over into the other person's playground, so to speak. So, you know, when I'm trying to control your behavior, or trying to make you do something, or trying to make a guy listen to what I say or dress a certain way, what I'm trying to get them to see is they need to actually come back into their 50% of the relationship. So that's why I use that model, and I'm not disagreeing with your model in that you are 100% responsible for your communication and can influence the relationship. And the model helps women to see, wait a minute, hang on, I'm trying to control, I'm trying to overpower here. So let me get back in my playground, and he can have his stuff. So it just makes it easier.
Yeah, very, very good, very interesting. So I wanted to ask you about this quality of a lot of women that has to do with being manipulative. What is that about? Because I find that less to be true with men. So let me just explain, in terms of what this looks like in experiences. So so women, for some reason, and this just maybe has to do with that women the way they are, is that it's much easier for women to be together and have a binding relationship with each other, and much closer. Mm-hmm. Like women kiss each other, sometimes even on the lips, and it doesn't mean that they're homosexual. Mm-hmm. They just mean that they're close. And when you go to the bathroom in a restaurant and you take somebody with you, guys don't do that. You know? It's just a different way of being, and maybe it's because I just don't understand. But they also have this tendency, so that's on the positive side. They very easily get connected and very easily also communicate and share and have fun and laugh, which is much harder for men because a lot of them take themselves way too seriously. And I say this also a lot these days, that a lot of these guys that I work with, if I could put a quarter between their butt cheeks, it would be there all day long. They would not let it go. That's how uptight they are. And women are like, it's just like these flowers, and they just go talk, and so the opposite of that I'm experiencing is that they're really good at manipulating, getting what they want through manipulation, and talking behind other people's backs. It's like there's this quality of them. And am I judging women right now? Probably am. But it's just something that I have noticed throughout my life, to be present when there are women, groups of women. Watch out. What do you think about that? Your turn.
Well, I'm not sure if you're judging, but we are both definitely generalizing, I would say. Mm-hmm. That women are.
Yeah, probably. It's just experiences I've had throughout these decades that.
Yeah.
It's just you get a bunch of women together, and before you know it, the gossip starts, and they start talking about people behind their backs, and guys don't do this. We don't do that when we get together. I can tell you.
Yeah, I mean, both men and women do have different tendencies. I mean, as a generalization, they do have different tendencies. And that's, I mean, women are much more probably interested in like human psychology and who we are as humans, and the Hollywood movie star stuff, and the gossip all gets sort of intertwined into that, and so that's actually one of the things that I learned about, and as I was learning new values in my counseling program, is how harmful that actually is, and how
It can be very, especially in organizations. The only reason I brought it up because in organizations, actually corporate America, this is an everyday thing, and it's very challenging.
Yeah, and again, it comes. Like again, each sex, males, females have their own pluses and minuses, and males have their own pluses and minuses, and that sadly is, as a generalization, is one of the minuses of the female world. And until we get more self-aware and learn how detrimental that is to each other, people need to point that out so that it changes. And that's where, in the organization that I work with, we actually talk about that. We'll catch ourselves and go, hey, wait a minute, are we gossiping right now? And we'll stop ourselves.
Well, that's cool. Yeah. So that you're being aware of it when you do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, because we're starting to understand the detriment of it, and so I'll even say that in people that I don't work with, that aren't way to me on becoming self-aware. I'll say to them, I really don't feel like I really want to have this conversation right now, or I'll change the subject or something like that. And so I think it's, each needs to be self-responsible about how that goes in the world as well. Like I can,
and I wasn't trying to say that men are better than women, not at all.
No, I didn't.
We kind of equals, and we all have our good parts and our bad parts. And,
I hear that it freaks you out a bit, though. It scares you a bit. Rightly so.
And it's just the way it is. And I think we're both learning. I learned a lot from women, and hopefully women are learning from us, so that we can get along better. It's still a very challenging thing. Relationship is still between the sexes, I feel. It's still very, very challenging, and people still say, and I'm generalizing again, I know, but people still say, I can't figure it out, I just don't get it.
Yeah. I spent the first year of my marriage trying to figure my husband out, and then I just went, you know what, I'm going to stop now. It just was frustrating me, so instead I just...
But it is also part of the attraction, I think. That we can't figure it out, and I don't even know what it is that we're trying to figure out. Other than there's been this movement where women have been trying to become more of a man, and men have been trying to become more women, and I'm talking about the energies of male and female, and that has I think created some interesting results, which we're living right now. The fine line is moving.
Getting crossed.
Yeah. So, but in essence, when we're talking about consciousness, I think, and we're talking about growth and the spiritual journey that we're all on, I think ultimately it's a good thing that we are open and we're willing to learn from the opposite sex, because I think that's the only way we're going to get to a place where there's going to be less friction. Would you say?
Absolutely. One of the tools that I think is really valuable is to use curiosity. Who is this person really? Underneath all of the things that I think that they're trying to portray, who are they really? And what are they showing us me that I can learn from, about them? And it's a much better. It's different than trying to figure somebody out, because trying to figure it out is you're kind of analyzing.
Right.
It's a bit different. Like curiosity is like, who are you? I want to learn about the things that I can appreciate about you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Marianne, the contest hour is over.
Oh,
We keep going on, and we could probably go on all night. But the show is at its end, and we have to wrap it up. But before we do, please share with our viewers a little bit about how they can contact you, what your website is, and what information you would like to share.
Absolutely. My website is thelimegreenplasticcoveredcouch.com, and they can get a link to my book on Amazon if they'd like to purchase it. And one of the things that I have coming out soon is a course on a company called Udemy.com. It's Udemy.com, and it's called Help, I Can't Find a Man. So if there are any single and struggling women out there, then they can get some online help that they can just do, in their own living room when it's convenient for them. So if they want to sign up at my website, I'll announce when the course is coming out. It should be this month, if not next month. And yeah, that's my latest baby, and I love working on it, and I really hope there's a lot of women that can.
Fantastic. All right, so thank you very much, Marianne. I really enjoyed being with you here for this conscious hour, and if we manage to touch, move, and inspire some people that are watching right now live, or they'll be watching our replays, I thank you very much, and I appreciate all of you. And everybody have a fantastic weekend coming up, and keep coming up. Keep coming back to watch our programs. We have one pretty much every day, and the more you watch our programs, of course, the better chance that it will end up on public television. So thank you again. I appreciate you, Marianne, for what you do in the world, and you changing the world one person at a time, which is what we do around here as well. So thank you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you so much for having me, Steve. That was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Same here. Thank you so much.
Okay.